Hey, welcome to A Game for Your Thoughts. Today we're talking about Doom Eternal's second DLC, The Ancient Gods Part 2. So The Ancient Gods Part 2 picks up right after the Part 1, and in the end of Part 1, well, spoiler alert for Part 1, so if you haven't played Part 1, go play that and then come back. But Part 1 ends with the Doomslayer resurrecting the Dark Lord, and the Dark Lord is basically like an evil version of the Doomslayer. So the Doomslayer, of course, tries to just blast him away, but the Dark Lord informs him that where they are at now, they can't perform their mortal combat. So the Dark Lord's like, hey, come over to my place, we'll settle this, and we'll go from there. So the Doomslayer essentially just has to get to hell and challenge the Dark Lord to mortal combat. So the story of Ancient Gods Part 2 is pretty minimal overall, and I was actually just fine with that because it let the gameplay do a lot of the talking, and thankfully this is some of the best Doom gameplay we've ever had. I'll talk about more of that later, and if you're worried about it, I won't be talking spoilers just yet, so if you want to hear spoilers, stick around for later, but if you want to hear a spoiler-free review, kind of hang tight for a minute and I'll warn you when we get to the spoiler stuff. So for the main story of Ancient Gods Part 2, like I said, it was super minimal. There's really not a lot that happens between the start and the end. There is a lot that happens at the end, but the build up to that point is very story light, and I was appreciative of that because, like I said, just let the gameplay do the talking. There is tons of codex pages and little lore things for around, so if you're super into the lore, there's tons here for you to see and explore and dig into more and kind of get more of what the Dark Lord is all about and kind of where he came from and what his importance to the overall story is and how the Doomslayer plays into everything. I thought it was great because it's really cool and interesting lore that I thought was awesome. The Ancient God Part 1 did a lot with the lore, and Part 2 just really builds upon that a little bit more, but while letting the gameplay do more. Like I said, it's very minimal story, so there's really not a whole lot to say, and I have so much more I want to say, but that starts getting into spoilers, so hang tight later if you want to hear more about the story. But for right now, let's jump into the gameplay, because there's so much to say about the gameplay, and I'm so excited. The gameplay of Ancient Gods Part 2 takes what Part 1 did and builds upon it even more, and I'd say at this point, Ancient Gods Part 2 is the perfect, if not the best, first-person action adventure shooting we've ever had. This is so awesome in the way it balances platforming and shooting and the types of enemies you come across, and just what made Doom Eternal so awesome, it just makes it even better somehow, and I loved it. I thought it was so much fun from the start to finish. And one thing Ancient Gods Part 2 does is it makes it so you approach so many situations in many different ways, mostly with the new altered enemy types. So there's really no new enemies, there's just altered enemies, and I thought that was fine because I didn't really think we needed new enemies, but the new additions that they made to older enemies really changed a lot of what they did with the combat. I don't want to spoil a lot of them, but I do want to tell you about one because it's introduced pretty early on, and I thought made a huge difference, and this is the buffed up zombie. So the zombies are super fodder enemies that you can take out in one hit, and they're mostly there for you to kind of farm for resources, but here they have a buffed up version of the zombie where if you kill it, it lets out an explosion that buffs up all the zombies in the area, so it makes it really tricky because you're so used to just blasting these zombies away, but now you have to really isolate them and avoid these zombies, and I thought it was fantastic, and they use them in so many cool and interesting situations that I really appreciated. Like I said, there's a few other types of enemies that are similar in idea, where it's an enemy we've seen before, but it's got some new modification to it that changes how you go about things and watch your spacing and the way you assess the arenas, things like that. But it's just a solid idea that the Ancient Gods Part 2 is just overflowing with these awesome ideas that really builds upon the combat and the gameplay. The next new big thing that the Ancient Gods Part 2 adds is the Escalation Gore Nests, and these test your skills to the limit. One level is required, but the second level increases the difficulty by like 10,000, and it rewards you with a cool new customizable skin. I thought that was cool as it didn't feel required, but it was totally optional, so if you like really want a good challenge, you can take on the second level of these Escalation Gore Nests. And I thought that was awesome, as it just was a really solid test of your skills. There's so many really difficult parts in this DLC, and these Escalation Gore Nests are easily the most difficult and the most fun I had the entire time. The newest addition to the DLC, beyond all the other things I just talked about, is the Hammer Weapon. So the Hammer Weapon is a very cool, unique Doom weapon because it's not necessarily a damage weapon, it's more of a resource weapon, and Doom Eternal's combat is really all about resource management, and this hammer really builds upon that in a really cool and interesting way. Like I said, this is a really smart weapon, as it really doesn't ruin the gameplay, because if you were just to like smash the hammer and destroy everything in front of you, it'd kind of feel a little cheap. So having it like a resource management thing is awesome, as you learn the best times to use it, and you can use it in combination with like the flame belch and the ice grenade to give yourself more resources. Situations like that were awesome, and it was fun finding the right times to use it, and when I did find the right time to use it, it was so helpful and very much appreciated. It was just a cool new weapon that just felt different than anything else we'd seen in Doom games before, and I really did like the hammer. It wasn't the ultimate weapon that can break the game, but just another tool to add into the already insanely clever gameplay. Throughout the DLC, there are 4 4 levels, 3 of them being main levels and then the 4th one being a boss fight. And I did appreciate how each of these levels felt very cool and unique from one another, and there's so much to see and do, and they're very detailed, and the exploration platforming is there. There isn't as many collectibles to pick up. There's like maybe 1 or 2 codex pages per level, and I thought that was fine. There is tons of extra lives hanging around, but one of my favorite parts about this Doom Eternal game is finding the cool collectibles and secrets hiding throughout the world. But here, the more gameplay combat is more what the focus is all about here. So it was cool because the combat was just so much fun, but I still did wish there was a few more collectibles to pick up. The awesome puzzling platforming is back, and I did like the new addition with the grappling hook swing points. They were cool and they were used in interesting ways, and I just loved the platforming in Doom Eternal. I feel like Ancient Gods Part 1 did a lot of this platforming puzzling. I thought it was awesome, and Ancient Gods Part 2 does a little bit of it. Like I said, it's more combat oriented, but the exploration is still fun, and there's a few cool challenging puzzles with the platforming. So Doom is a series whose music has always been super iconic and one of the best parts of the game, and with Mick Gordon no longer working with Bethesda on the Doom games, it is definitely very obvious that his composition is not there. The composition of the Ancient Gods Part 2 does feel a little bit more simple and less intricate as Mick Gordon's score, and it was fine. It still did exactly what it needed to do. It set a good tone, and it got the blood pumping for the awesome action, but it just definitely didn't feel the same. It didn't feel as heavy and awesome and intricate. So for a non-spoiler review, I feel like I did a pretty good job of covering the basics and letting you know what you're going to get into, but still leaving tons for you to explore on your own and discover for yourself. So if you've never played the DLCs for Doom Eternal and you played the first game in like the original Doom Eternal and you loved it and you want more of it, I highly recommend you pick up these DLCs. You can get the Year 1 pack, which comes with both of them, and I think that's the perfect way to go about it because now you can play through both of them right in a row without having to wait. I loved both the DLCs, and Ancient Gods Part 2 I felt like was a pretty solid cap. It's not the perfect ending in terms of wrapping it up. I'll talk about that more in spoilers, but I thought it was a great conclusion to the Doomslayer story, and I'm really excited to talk spoilers. But for non-spoiler chat, I think you should absolutely check this out. I feel like it is the perfect continuation of the Doom Eternal story. The gameplay is phenomenal, and it just adds to the experience. It doesn't take away in any way, shape, or form, and I just had so much fun with this. The hammer was a great addition. I liked how the story was minimal and let the gameplay talking because, like I said, this is some of the best, if not the best, first-person shooter action. I loved every second of it, and I've played through this DLC several times now, and it's just so much fun every single time I go back.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
I do want to thank my partner Gamerware. Gamerware is a fantastic clothing company that is all about gaming. They have a bunch of cool, unique designs that are original, and they're so awesome. Right now I'm wearing the Robot Punk t-shirt. It is a very cool design that I really enjoy. It's very high quality products, and it's for a good price too. And you can save yourself 10% off. If you use the code AGFY10, you can get 10% off your order, and it helps support me in the show. So thank you guys so much, and go and check out Gamerware. They're a fantastic company that's got tons of really cool hats, jackets, shirts, things like that. There's so much to see and do, and they even have customizable jerseys. You can get your name and number put on it. So I'll leave a link down in the description. You can go and check them out. Thanks to Gamerware, and you guys enjoy the rest of the video.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Hey, before you go, I would love to talk some spoilers. So if you haven't played the DLC yet, I recommend you go play it, or if you haven't finished it yet, go finish it, then come back and we can chat spoilers, because there's lots to talk about as the conclusion of the Doom Eternal story and for the future of the Doom series itself. So hang tight for spoilers, and I will warn you, spoiler warning. So let's jump into it. So with most of my other spoiler chats, I'll just kind of start at the beginning and just do like kind of a play-by-play walkthrough of parts that I liked, things that I enjoyed, or cool moments that just really stood out. So yet again, you have been warned, this is a spoiler warning. So starting out right at the beginning, we have the Doomslayer just immediately try to blow away the Dark Lord with a super shotgun. I thought that was awesome, and it really says a whole lot about his character. It was just kind of a fun intro to the thing. You're like, this is going to be awesome. Like, I was so stoked when this first happened, and I just liked how the Dark Lord was just like, dude, I know what you're doing. Let's just get this over with, but we can't do it here. Let's just meet at my place. I'll get drinks, and we'll have a good time. You know, it'll be fun. I just liked it. It just showed a lot of the Doomslayer's character, and it just really set up this epic battle that I was just like, I can't wait. So from here, the DLC really doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have a whole lot going on, because it mostly consists of the Doomslayer going to find this ultimate portal to hell. He has to go find a crystal to power the portal, then he has to go find the portal, and then he enters the portal, and then we get to the ultimate battle. And when we get the cutscene of the Doomslayer emerging, and then the Sentinel armies and everyone else showing up to fight all these demons from hell, I thought it was a fantastic scene that was super epic and set up for a really cool conclusion. I was a bit worried, and I think I was semi-satisfied, because I was worried that it wasn't going to feel like a battle, that it was going to feel like another level. And I thought they did a good job of making it feel like there was a battle going on. You can see Titans and Sentinel warriors fighting in the background. I thought it was really cool, and it just was a cool visual thing to look at. As for your, like, the gameplay itself, it did feel like another level. I do wish that there would have been like a section where there's just like a giant like field of demons and you just had to tear your way through them. I thought that would have been fantastic. And then there's like Sentinels fighting fighting alongside you, or even get to go into one of the Sentinel tanks. I thought that would have been awesome. Well, like the giant Sentinel armors, not like the actual tanks. There are actual tanks hanging around, but I mean like the giant like Sentinel army, because I totally think that would be so rad if you got an opportunity to do that. But then I also didn't be, I had a tricky time with it because I thought it'd be really cool, but also at the same time it just shows how awesome the Doomslayer is, that he like doesn't need that stuff. But I thought it'd been really cool to do that just for the cool gameplay thing, but it also shows how unique Doom Eternal is, because it doesn't just like throw you into like a turret section and it's like, look how cool this is, and it's like, anyways, that's a big different thing. But I thought the overall final battle felt cool. It wasn't the perfect thing, and like I said, I wish it would have been a little bit more big in its scope and like the things that you do in the level, because it certainly feels like another level. But I love the visual presentation of it. They did a great job of showing the demons fighting, and just the overall scope of it felt incredible. So after this, we get to the fight with the Dark Lord, and I was really excited for this fight because I knew this was going to be the big epic conclusion. So I was like, this fight has got to be awesome. And I got to say, it like met my expectations, but also kind of undermined my expectations, because I had my expectations. I've been playing Doom Eternal so much, so like I knew what to expect from its boss fights. Not perfect boss fights, not bad boss fights, but good boss fights. And that's exactly what the Dark Lord was. It wasn't a terrible fight, it wasn't the perfect fight. And I thought that was fair. I was like, okay, my expectations were in check. If you go in expecting this to be like the perfect boss fight of all time, you're probably going to be fairly disappointed. But for me, I knew how to keep my expectations in check. I knew what to expect. And overall, I thought it was an enjoyable fight. Certainly the first time through, it was a little rough trying to figure it out, but then the multiple times I played through the DLC, I got the hang of it a little easier, and multiple times through were far more enjoyable since I knew what to look for and how to anticipate the patterns. The biggest thing with him is he controls a lot of the pacing of the fight, and that was the thing that was a little bit frustrating, is that you had to wait for him to send out the wolves so you could get the hammer hit so you could do more damage to him. And I thought that was kind of unfair that you had to wait for him, because then you're just running around waiting for him to send out the wolves, and it just kind of got frustrating. Just you're like, come on man, give me the wolves, and then you're just that was the most frustrating part about that. It was waiting for him to send out the wolves. Once you get that, then it's a good boss fight. It was just that one part when you had to wait for him to send out the wolves, especially in the last phase where you can send out a field of demons or the wolves, and you just keep sending out demons. It just doesn't feel like I'm in control of the situation. I feel like I'm waiting for him. Other than that, I thought it was great. It did a good job with the spacing, and it took a lot of things that I really liked from the Marauder and kind of built upon it in a cool way, and used the hammer in an interesting way. So overall, it was a cool fight. It wasn't a perfect fight, and I didn't like how I had to wait for the wolves to come out, and it was just a tad frustrating in that. But overall, in the sense of like urgency and epicness to the fight, I did feel that, and I thought it was great, and it was a fun and interesting fight. It just had a few problems. So after the fight, the Doomslayer rips his helmet off, and we figure out that the Dark Lord is actually like the ultimate creator, and that he created the Father and everything else, but then the Father turned on him and made it so that the Dark Lord was the bad guy. I thought that was a cool little twist that just kind of turned our expectations, which I thought was cool, that the Dark Lord is not the ultimate bad guy, he's actually the ultimate good guy who got turned bad. I thought that was a cool thing. And then I liked, like I said, the Doomslayer rips his helmet off, so you get this cool, like really personal moment when the Dark Lord's like, do you have any final words? And the Doomslayer says no, and then like stabs him, and it was like an epic like, screw you. But I did like how the Doomslayer had his helmet off, just because it felt a little bit more personal, that he was like this guy instead of like the Doomslayer. He's just a dude. He's just a dude who has god powers, and I thought that was really cool. But with the Dark Lord being the ultimate creator, the Doomslayer loses his power and he collapses, and then he gets re-put into the sarcophagus. And I thought that was a cool ending, as it kind of felt full circle, because we started Doom 2016 in the sarcophagus, and then we end Doom Eternal in the sarcophagus. I thought that was a kind of cool full circle thing of like a good storytelling where you end up in the same place, but things have changed, and I thought that was neat. As for the future of the Doom series, I liked this conclusion, because if they never made a Doom game ever again, I'd honestly be satisfied, because with my overall experience with Doom Eternal and its 2 DLCs, I have to say that Doom Eternal is the perfect Doom game. How do they improve upon this going in the future almost seems impossible. How do they improve upon something that's almost perfect? I thought Doom Eternal was probably one of the greatest games I've ever played in my entire life. It just perfected what it meant to do, and it was so much fun and enjoyable the entire time. Its combat is incredibly clever, and I just love every single thing about Doom Eternal. I've made 3 different videos about it on the main game, and now it's 2 DLCs, and I feel like I've explained what I loved about it so much. And I feel like the Ancient Gods 2 just capped this all off and made it so perfect that I would be fully satisfied that if I went my entire rest of my life and never played a new Doom game again, I'd honestly be satisfied because Doom Eternal just nailed it so perfectly. And the way they ended the story makes it seem satisfying too, that it's like, hey, if we need you again, we know you're at, but we hope we don't need you. And I thought that was cool. It's like the Doomslayer did what he needed to do, and he's not really needed anymore. And I kind of feel like that with the Doom series, is it did what it needed to do, and it doesn't really feel needed anymore. And that's not to disrespect the developers at all in any way, because they did a phenomenal job, and I have nothing but praises for the Doom Eternal team, especially developing these DLCs. They did it all from home because of everything that's going on. And so they did a fantastic job working with what they did, and it was just perfect. And I thought that they nailed it, and I think that just going forward, if Doom never had a continuation, I'd be just fine with that. So that brings me to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching my thoughts on the Doom Eternal Ancient Gods Part 2. I really loved this, and I think you should absolutely pick it up. But let me know down in the comments below, what did you think about the Ancient Gods Part 2? And what did you think about Doom Eternal overall? Were you satisfied with the ending? What did you think about the DLCs? Just let me know. I'd love to hear from you. And while you're down there, if you want to hit like, subscribe, and the bell to get notified every time I post a new video, that would be awesome. And if you want to see more of me, I'm over on Twitch at twitch.tv/GameForYourThoughts. I'm streaming there all the time, and I would love to see you there. Thanks again for watching. I hope you have an excellent day, and don't forget that the key to success is succeeding, and we'll catch you guys next time on A Game for Your Thoughts.